Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Sporting Global podcast. And today I'm happy to have with me two amazing people all the way from the US, Gloria and Jeremy. Welcome to the podcast. It's an honor having both of you here. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Absolutely. And today, Gloria, we're going to talk a little bit about, the West Coast Conference, a little bit about the We Create Champion mantra and a little bit about the Russell Rule. But before we do that, I think it would be great to just, get a little bit more insights about you. Just tell us a little bit about who you are, your background, and what you're doing in the sport industry today.
So I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area in California, and I went to the University of Massachusetts at Amherst to play basketball on a scholarship. And while I was there, I ended up in the sport management major, and that really kind of set me on the path to getting into college athletics. So that was kind of a fortunate happenstance for me. Came back to California, went to law school, and then ended up doing an internship with the Cal, or an externship for credit, at the Cal compliance department during a time when they were investigating a major infraction. So I got a lot of hands-on running of the shop while, my mentor and, intern oversight manager went and investigated that infraction. That's the point where I said, I want to make this a career. I want to be in college athletics, and never really look back after that.
Nice. And what exactly are you doing right now?
So right now I'm the commissioner of the West Coast Conference. I'm entering my third year on the job. And so we represent the faith-based schools on the West Coast. So you'll see some of the logos behind me, but we span from Washington down to San Diego and as far east as BYU in the mountains.
Absolutely. And the college athletics was, it's a fascinating industry. I weren't really aware of it before I went over to the US, and I'm like, what is this all about? So I see, what is so unique about this, area of college athletics, and a lot of passionate, student athletes, and a lot of people that you can make an impact on. And again, why West Coast Conference and other conferences are so important for their development, not only as athletes, but as people as well, as we will touch upon a little bit, as we go in this podcast. I don't know, Jeremy, if you just want to share a little bit about yourself. I know some of our viewers, listeners already know a little bit about you, but it would be great if you can just do a brief intro as well.
Well, like you, I have an accent. So I'm from Wales. I came over to the States to do my graduate work at the University of Washington, and sort of never went back. And I did a PhD in Illinois, went to teach at Cal Berkeley in the Bay Area for a couple of years. Then went into industry, sports industry and sport resort industry for a few years before going to USF 20 plus years ago. And you know me from there, obviously.
Right.
And I'm a professor in the in the sport management program there.
Absolutely. So before we dive into more into the topic, I want to just mention for all of you that are listening and viewing. First of all, thank you for tuning in. This is going to be an amazing podcast. And on August 26th, we're having the Sporting Global Summit, our first part, which is going to be about data on the future of sports, the American version. So make sure to read more about it. We're going to have a link in the bio. So check it out. It's going to be, key speakers from the industry in America sharing their knowledge and expertise about data and the future of sports. So make sure to sign up. But Gloria, we're going to talk a lot about West Coast Conference. And, it's been sort of a brand change happening with West Coast Conference recently. So I just wanted to know a little bit about, the process around a new brand and the We Create Champions mantra. Could you just tell a little bit about how that process went about? And I'll let Jeremy go in as well to just ask a couple more follow-up questions on that. But it would be great to kind of share the overview and kind of the thought process of We Create Champions.
So, we embarked on the brand journey and hired an outside firm called Legend Labs to come in and really do the deep dive
Yep.
and figure out who we are at the basic DNA level. And that included a ton of outreach, surveying student athletes, all the administrator coaches, ADs, SWAs, FARs. And we really came up with a playbook about what distinguishes us nationally. And if I had to distill down this, 20-page document, it really came down to, we're a smaller league as far as enrollment, but we compete for national titles in basically all sports. Right. And the commonality that brings us together is we're all faith-based schools. So even though there's different faiths represented on our 10 schools,
yep.
The alignment of the mission and core values is really something special within our league. So once we established that, we embarked on the effort for a visual identity. And as you can see from my logo, previously it was just a standalone W. And, we really are known as WCC.
Yeah.
Some people don't even know that stands for West Coast Conference.
Right.
I mean, easy to figure out. But so it was really about getting back to kind of who we are, the basic building blocks, and then establishing a national brand around our family of schools.
Right. I don't know, Jeremy, if you want to touch a little bit upon, the mantra and like we create champion, a little bit of your thoughts around this.
Yeah, well, I was fortunate that Gloria, pretty quickly, I'm part of the West Coast Conference Executive Council. So for the non-US people listening, there's 10 schools in the conference, and then you get 3 representatives from each school who goes to annual meetings. So that's 30 people. There's always a faculty person. There's always the athletic director.
Right.
And there's the senior women's administrator. You will learn in college athletics, everything's an acronym. So I'm the FAR, my friend's the SWA, and somebody's the AD.
Right.
So,
right.
And we get together, and then that council makes decisions on how the conference runs. And then Gloria, obviously, as head of the conference, brings her vision, and then takes whatever decisions are made and operationalizes them. And then ultimately, everything reports into a president's council. There's 10 presidents of the university, and they're the decision makers. So ultimate decision makers. Right. So I was fortunate that when Gloria thought she needed a rebrand, and I think it did, and she brought her energy and zest for that. I was part of that small group initially that was on the rebrand subcommittee, and I think Gloria will say that I was either driven to talk about mantras, or I was a pain in the what to talk about mantras, because I'm in a previous life I worked for a company that had a sports resort company that had a mantra called "We enhance people's lives."
Right.
And to this day, I have no idea what our mission statement was. I have no idea what our values were.
Right.
But I remember the mantra. It was memorable, and sort of the mantra, 3-4 words, defined for me the corporate soul.
Right.
So no matter what position you had for that organization, your job was to enhance people's lives.
Right.
So for the most part, it was the members of the resort. But then you start extrapolating that out. We enhance people's lives of the employees. So how do you do that? Right. And then for me, it allowed me to argue, well, what about enhancing the people's lives of the community that the companies are in?
Yeah.
And the company then took 5% of the net operating income and then donated that money into enhancing programs in the community. Right. So I'm a mantra-driven guy. Yeah. I like mantras. I don't remember missions. So I like the fact that the conference, independent of me, really got mantra-centric to a degree, and Gloria can jump on that if she wishes.
Yeah, it worked out really well. I think We Create Champions really epitomizes what we came up with the brand positioning statement and what we found in the survey results. And it's catchy, great acronym, obviously, but when we start thinking about other platforms, you can adjust that. We create change, we create champions, it really is flexible to the issues of the day.
Right. No, for sure. And I think that's going to be a very, very key factor. And, talking a little bit about, the big process of just rebranding in a sense. And as you said, like having, the logo was just the W before, and now, WCC, which also like, helps people understand, I think better, like to like, again, be familiar with what West Coast Conference is all about.
And if you remember, we're educational institutions. So,
yeah,
we create champions, but it's champions in sport. Obviously it's athletics, but, we're schools. So we create champions for life, right? And in creating students that can go on and be change makers. And so I think, we create champions for change, based again, using the acronym. And then very easily, we create change, and as Gloria says, you can run with it. But again, it gives people a sense of, for me, hey, this is why I'm here. This is why I'm at this school or this conference, not another. There's other ones that create champions, but we now create champions in multiple facets. And if that's what you totally believe in, then that's the soul of the company, and I think, or the organization, and that's what people need with a mantra. Is this defines who you are and everything you do.
Yeah, no, for sure. And obviously there's a lot of change happening now. It's a very challenging time, and what I just read and discovered recently was obviously the integration of the Russell Rule. So that's a great initiative from everyone at the West Coast Conference, and I just wanted to hear a little bit about what exactly, and we have a lot of global viewers and listeners, so there's like from all over the world essentially like exploring this, and I was just thinking like, okay, can you just share a little bit about like what is the Russell Rule and kind of like the thought process around it? Why is this important right now?
So in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd in America, there was a really heightened sense of passion, indignation, and a lot of national conversation around racism, Black Lives Matter movement. And it just so happened that week after George Floyd, we had our annual league meetings. And our presidents we readjusted the whole agenda. We started with the topic of social justice and what that means to our schools and our athletic programs, because we have a very diverse population among the athletes in our WCC institutions.
For sure.
But we don't have that same level of diversity or representation at the coaching level or the administrative level. And it's been an issue in college sports for a very long time.
Right.
So everyone released very meaningful statements when, the incident with George Floyd happened, but our presidents and our council members said, look, we want something that has meaningful and lasting change. We pride ourselves as educational institutions. We prided ourselves on offering a holistic experience. We're not just an athletic farm.
Right.
While we do vie for national titles, we graduate student athletes and they go on to become industry leaders.
Yeah.
So it was really important for our presidents to do something more than a statement. And the concept of a hiring commitment had been bouncing in my head for a while. I presented it to presidents and they just ran with it 2.5 months later, which is unheard of for HR policy to get adopted. We have this fully vetted and adopted in our handbook and constitution.
Looking into the future, the beginner faces a choice that leads him to the triumph, or not. Being surrounded by like-minded professionals can be the best guarantee that you actually take that crucial career step.
Sport in Global is a digital network for sports jobs. It gives you the chance to be involved in the sports industry no matter who you are, regardless of gender, nationality, and experience.
Our AI system matches up talent with human resources. Candidates who align with the company's values and needs immediately get shortlisted. It saves time for HR and increases the opportunities available to applicants.
The platform identifies tailor-made recommendations based on user needs, so you're always aware of the possibilities out there right now.
Sport in Global is a place where students gain key tips about jobs and build the valuable connections that are essential for people at the beginning of their career path.
The path from candidate to champion starts with a single step in the right direction. Sign up to Sport in Global.
Sport in Global, the best way to enter the sports industry.
There you go. I mean, like this is what got to happen. Like when something comes up, we got to act quickly and change, accordingly. And I think one of the challenges, and I talked with Jeremy about this a little bit too before we jumped on this podcast, and I think like there's a lot of verticals that needs to be that needs to integrate this Russell rule, and obviously the process of like actually implementing it in paper was very fast, which it's great, but now comes kind of like as I would say the most challenging part of like making sure that all the verticals, like the university members, the staff, the West Coast Conference, the athletes, they're all like on board of this mental state and mental change. Like how do you go about integrating something like that, and what are some of the key steps that you need to take moving forward now?
And I think that was one of the big topics in the developing this policy was the accountability and making sure it was meaningful.
Yeah.
And all of our policies are only as strong as the membership's desire, because they could vote things in or out. So two pieces of accountability that are really special about this Russell rule is, one, it's not only in our handbook, it's in our Constitution. So it would take a supermajority of our presidents to vote it out if the temperature changed. Not that that would happen, because we are 10-0 in favor of this.
Right.
But the other piece is a public report card. So the Tides Institute at University of Central Florida, run by Dr. Richard Lapchek, will be doing an annual race and gender demographic survey and assigning a letter grade to all 10 campuses and the league office on hiring. So in addition to, I think, our schools being committed, in addition to the enforcement efforts that are built into the policy, there is a public accountability measure that will accompany this effort, which I think is really important.
Yeah, no, for sure. Jeremy, I don't know, like, do you like have any thoughts on like, what do you see as like some of the challenges they will face?
Well, no, well, first of all, I want to reinforce what Gloria said. I think the importance of using Dr. Lapchik was key. He has a strong reputation in the United States for previous work he's done in the professional sport world, and accountability. For those who in the audience who may have children, right? Accountability is key.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that Gloria initiated that, and again, it comes back to me why brand is important, because branding to me is an overused word. We see it everywhere, but it is important if the brand, and again in this instance the mantra, defines the soul of the organization. So you want people to join the West Coast Conference. You want coaches to come to the West Coast Conference. You want administrators to come to the West Coast Conference, because it's a great place to work, but also it's a place that creates change.
Right.
So that's the important thing, is the brand is important so that you can bring the best talent, and in this instance, the best diverse talent, to campus, and everybody involved on the campus or at the conference level and the presidents knows that this change is really at the core of the soul of the organization. So, to bring it back to branding is important.
Yeah.
Because you've got to get that message out, and it's the brand that creates the belief in somebody wanting to be in this organization and not another. There's a lot of conferences to work in the United States.
Yeah.
Right. But I want to work at this one now. I'm driven.
Right.
Right.
No, I think it's, as you said, like having the accountability is a major factor. And I think it's going to help, people that are applying and are looking for opportunities too, that know that, okay, West Coast Conference, we have this mindset, this mentality, and we're open, we're doing something about it. We're not just, saying something or having a quote. We were actually, taking measurements, which I think is something that, me and us at Sporting Global have talked a lot about too. It's like, it's one thing, sharing a quote or what it might be, but what kind of measurements are we actually, taking for being responsible? And as you say, accountability, in every kind of step. And I think, what would be interesting for me to hear as well is, of course, internally, West Coast Conference, like the university members, the presidents, it seems like, you guys are all on board here, but I think also, where do you see sort of like, where talking about partners, sponsors, affiliates with the West Coast Conference, and a lot going on of like, being on the same page with this sort of, we create champions for change, or we create change where, together, whatever partnership or agreement you do, that it aligns with this sort of new way of thinking and helping that process going forward.
Following up on Jeremy's point, not only do we hope that this is a signal to the marketplace for candidates, as far as coaches and administrator, but to your point, sponsorship and other business partners that want to align with our mission and values. And I think it's a very important distinction in college athletics that we've been able to put this out front in a national way.
Yeah.
Gloria, can you talk just for an instance, only because I'd like to know this too, because it's so new, and this is the first time we've seen each other in a while. How has this been embraced nationally? And again, I think for our international viewers, similar discussions are floating around in terms of hiring practices in the EPL, in La Liga, in multiple organizations in Europe. Yeah. How's it been embraced in the US?
I have been overwhelmed by the positive, both publicity as well as feedback we've gotten from the college athletics world, and even outside the college athletics space. I think it's amazing, given that this is happening during COVID. I know a lot of folks have been inquiring about the policy, and we just got support from the National Basketball Coaches Associations for both men's and women's basketball. And so they're issuing a formal support. I've heard the Knight Commission has discussed and is thinking about a way to kind of engage and support us. One of our biggest Twitter, pops was Arne Duncan, former Secretary of Education under the Obama administration, got really excited about this effort and has bringing it to kind of the higher education, non-athletics world. So it's still coming in, to be honest. And I think COVID has obviously taken a lot of focus, and whether we're playing fall sports, but we're optimistic that we're going to continue to bring other leagues along, and hopefully some others will adopt the same.
And Ollie, I just realized there might be many viewers, I know in America they will, but many viewers internationally that aren't quite familiar with who Russell is. So
exactly. If you could just who's Russell?
Right, and it's kind of crushing. There's some young folks in our office who didn't know who they knew the name, but so Bill Russell is one of the greatest basketball players of all time. He played He played in college in the mid-50s, won 2 NCAA titles at the University of San Francisco.
Nice.
But what really struck us about not only being one of our alum, but he was a lifelong advocate for social justice. He spoke up, boycotted, refused to engage in restaurants or areas that were still segregated at a time when it had held a lot of risk to do so. He was one of the first and only. In addition, he was the first African-American head coach in any professional sport, not just basketball. So talk about a perfect ceiling breaker, barrier breaker to name this initiative after. I mean, not only does it have incredible alliteration, but everything he stands for and worked for his life perfectly aligns with what this policy is trying to achieve.
No, for sure. And I'm thinking, just to kind of starting to wrap up a little bit here and kind of get to the end of it, where, obviously, being in COVID pandemic situation now, do you feel like it's kind of have given you some extra time, or like a process of work this in a sense, or how do you see this challenge with the pandemic? But I'm just thinking has it been a positive thing, or the other way around for integrating this now?
Well, for us in our league, it was very, very positive that our presidents, especially, who are daily inundated, we're all working tirelessly and harder than we would in a non-pandemic world to figure out how to bring sports back. Yep. So the great positive in this is how much attention and time our presidents and administrators gave to this, despite dealing with this crisis that is, overcoming every aspect of our business.
No, for sure. Jeremy, I don't know if you have like any final questions.
No, not questions. I think you know, given the nature of the discussion, you know, a good friend of mine, Dave Batstone, wrote a book a number of years ago called "Saving the Corporate Soul,"
Right.
and sort of ellipses and maybe your own in the process, you know, which I thought was a great title for a book. And I do think, you know, a strong mantra that defines a company, such as the you know, what Gloria's been talking about in terms of how you can then embrace like a Russell rule because it makes sense to the corporate culture.
Yeah.
But I would tell anybody looking for work that, you know, just the importance of looking for that in a company that you're going to go to, because it's as you said, the AI of your program doesn't just match up somebody's qualifications with what a company's looking for. It's matching up really values and what matters, and it's the AI part that is quite intriguing in how it can do that.
Yeah.
So
and it always learns, you know, it's a learning process, sort of like with, you know, as you said, you had accountability. We are having accountability with our tool in terms of like continuing improving, you know, but together with the right kind of partners that has like this mindset, it's going to be, you know, an interesting journey to like continue developing and fine tuning so we can even, you know, get the best possible matches.
Exactly. And I love the fact, like I work for the University of San Francisco. I really love it because I love what it stands for. But I'm really proud to be part of a West Coast conference because, you know, it's easy to me. I can really say to people quite easily, these are their values. This is what they stand for.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a 3-4 words that defines them, and it should define what any job that anybody in the company has. And if you don't have those values, it's not the place to be. But if you do have them, it's magical. And I think that's what everybody wants, right? They want to work somewhere that's magical.
And where they can make an impact and they feel like they fit and belong and can create the most value. I don't know, Gloria, if you have any final comments or remarks on this.
No, I absolutely love everything Jeremy said because you know what? We create chemistry.
Right.
Oh, very good. Very good.
There you go. All right, Gloria and Jeremy, I'd like to thank the both of you for taking the time for this podcast. It's a very interesting topic. You know, it's a lot to go through, and I'm sure, you know, we could talk about this for a long time. And I do think we have to touch base, you know, with a new episode in, you know, a couple months, maybe like a year from now, and kind of like go back and see, okay, how is this actually, you know, what is the results that are happening now with this? Because that's I think it's going to be a lot of interesting to see. I'm positive it's going to work, you know, together with the right kind of, you know, mentality, mindset. The presidents, you know, they're all fighting for this, which is, you know, the number one factor, I think. So thank you, both of you, for taking the time, and it's been a pleasure having you both here as part of the podcast.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I appreciate it.
All right. And with every video, we always finish with "Lyssna kiss," which means see you later in Norwegian.